What's going on, everybody? This is Black Men Sundays. I'm your host, Corey Sylvester Murray, and we're talking about generational wealth, mental health, finance, and business.
It's a black man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate.
Oh, yeah, and this is our first New Year's show. I know people say you don't say Happy New Year the week after MLK, but we're doing that. This is our first Black Men show of 2025. And we have to definitely introduce today's guest. We're talking to nutritionists. We're talking to the co-founders of Eat Well Exchange. We're talking to Ashley Carter and Jasmine Westbrook Figueroa. And let me run down these sisters' credentials. Ashley Carter, this sister is a nutrition educator. She has a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics and a minor in religion, and she's currently working on a master's degree in dietetics, and she's a registered dietitian nutritionist. And Jasmine Westbrooks Figueroa, she's a registered dietitian at the Diabetics Outpatient Facility. This sister comes to us with a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition Dietetics from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. You know, Chattown in the house. And this sister has a master's in clinical nutrition, and she's a nutrition educator at the Florida Department of Health. So, without further ado, ladies, welcome to Black Men Sundays. How you doing?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing good, doing good. So let's jump right in. This Black Men Sundays. You guys are the co-founders of the Eat Well Exchange. What is that?
Eat Well Exchange, we're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and we teach communities how to eat healthy with a focus on cultural foods. Because so long we've been told that if you want to eat healthy, you can't eat foods that your grandma was cooking, or you can't eat, African American traditional foods or Caribbean foods. So we teach people the opposite, that it is possible to maintain our traditions and our culture while being healthy. So we started Eat Well because we were coworkers together at the Department of Health, and we knew that something was missing, and that something missing was culture. So we teach communities how they can use what they have. So focusing on food access, culinary education, and also nutrition, and teaching them how they can live healthier and prevent medical conditions with our cultural foods.
With that being said, and all that Ashley explained, it actually developed into three pillars for our organization. And that was nutrition education, where we pretty much hold nutrition education classes to the community, even to healthcare professionals. We then provide access to food, so access initiatives to healthy foods because of food insecurity in this country. And we have different initiatives and programs under that pillar. And then the last and most exciting pillar for us is our culinary programs. And we have a men's culinary program, we have a kids culinary program, we have a program that is preventing diabetes, such as Heritage for Health, which is the name of it. And we have bilingual programs that are focused towards Haitians and Haitian Creole and bilingual culinary programs too. So if you like to get in the kitchen, if you like to just cook some of your favorite dishes that you have so many memories with, then that's what you can expect from an Eat Well Exchange culinary program.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Oh yeah, y'all not playing. And let's take it back though. Like, what made you guys set up the Eat Well Exchange? Like, how did you set your business up? And how did you know that, okay, I'm comfortable with Ashley running our business together? Like, how did you guys, develop that relationship, that business relationship?
Well, it really started because we were friends first. We worked together and we developed a friendship. And then as we were friends, we started talking, and we're like, we had the same passion when it came to our people doing better. For me, my parents both passed away at a younger age, all because of medical conditions. My mom passed away when I was in high school. So that really impacted me and just my perception of health. And also I grew up in Liberty City, which is a lower income area. And Jasmine grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and she experienced her grandparents going through medical issues. So the more we talked about it, it's like we're in two different states. Why are we experiencing the same thing? And then you go up the road to Tallahassee, and people aren't experiencing that as much as we are in these lower income, food insecure communities. So we're like, we got to do something about it. So we knew nothing about nonprofits as far as the business structure and we didn't really have funding like that. It literally was me, Jazz, and our third co-founder, Deidre, putting our personal money in a pot and saying, like, what can we do with this money? What coupons can we use when we grocery shop to stretch this money the furthest? But we were like, we knew that it had to be done. So we were just going to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's pretty much how we started. And of course, we had a lot of friends that helped us out. One of our girlfriends is a lawyer, so she helped us with our 501c3. We had a lot of connections along the way. When it comes to my brother, he's an accountant. So a lot of people like that were very like integral when it comes to us starting Eat Well. But the main thing was us just seeing the mission, seeing that people are literally dying from conditions that could be prevented, and knowing that we had to do something about it.
And let's talk about the 501c3. That's a very interesting, a lot of people come to me, hey man, I'm trying to set up, I have an LLC, but I'm trying to set up a nonprofit. Do I hire a lawyer to do that? Is that something I could do on my own? I'm hearing it's only like $400 if I do it myself. It's like $1,200 if I have a lawyer. So for the brothers and sisters listening, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, people that work a 9 to 5 that's trying to set up their own business on the side as well, that are using their main job to finance their business. So what steps for a brother and sister listening that they want to 501c nonprofit, but they have no idea how to set it up? Hook us up, ladies.
Yeah, so that is a very good question. And I'll give you the story of actually, more in depth of how we got started because I went to first of all, Ashley and I were friends first. Like, let's say that we were friends first before we became business partners. And so with us being friends, this was like a night where we were just talking and hanging out as girls and thinking about, all the different corporate companies that we work for. And the fact that our people were not being, served in a way where they were told that their foods were healthy. Because remember, Eat Well Exchange is focused on healthy foods based on our culture. And so as we're talking about the problem of not seeing other healthcare professionals really offering the education around cultural foods, Ashley and I and Deidre, we actually were like, we should just like start a nonprofit, like just to have programming so that people that look like us can actually go to have a hub in a sense. That's a good way to think of it. It's like a Eat Well hub. And so fast forward, like maybe 2 weeks later, I actually go to a diabetes conference and I meet this pharmacist from Montego Bay. And I'm telling him about, Eat Well Exchange, like we're going to call it this and we're going to serve the community this way. And we're going to teach people how to eat their cultural foods. And the next thing you know, he's inviting us to come to Montego Bay to educate his people of how they can eat healthy based on their cultural foods. And Ashley's like, wait a minute, we don't have anything set up. What are you doing? We didn't even have like a defined name. I'm over here making up names of like what our nonprofit was going to be. And so that is really what lit a fire under our butts to like actually do the actual legal paperwork, if you want to say that, to get started. So the reason I mention that story is because I feel like sometimes we feel like we have to have it all together. And if we felt like we had to have it all together, we would have never been able to serve almost 50,000 people now since 2017. We would have never been able to like break down doors and just have seats in different rooms that we thought that we would never have them in if we would have waited to try to have it all figured out. And so to answer your question a little bit more deeper, usually your state, like the Secretary of State or your state will have like a business entity where you actually sign up for like doing articles of incorporation in your bylaws in order to create a nonprofit organization. And you do have to have yourself, and if it's not a partnership, you have to have what they call a registered agent, someone else that is pretty much, in a sense, I want to call like a co-signer, but just someone else that's an individual who is like witnessing that this is an organization that you've decided to create. And also you'll need an EIN number, and you can kind of look at that as like your business social security number for the most part. So that's important to have for government reasons as well. But I know like for Florida, it's called SunBiz. For North Carolina, where I am right now, it's just a Secretary of State website. And it doesn't take long at all. It takes maybe, depending on the state, it may take around like 20 to 25 minutes, depending on like who you're filling it out with. But you also don't have to fill it out to like pay anything. And I forgot the form that you use. There's another form that you can use that takes it right through the steps, super easy. And Ash, you can chime in on this. I know it's called something easy, where you can actually go through and fill out some information as well. So it's not as horrible as people may think. Like it's a long process. You got to get 500, pieces of paper and stacked and stand in a line and do all these different things. It's not that long.
I will add on to that more about the nonprofit certification. So the form you fill out is the 1023. So that's just like the form that you use to get a 501c3. So the benefit of being a 501c3 is that's when you become tax exempt. So of course, as a nonprofit, you want businesses and people to donate to you. And the only way that you can have those people write off on their taxes if you're a 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit. And also you're free from state taxes and federal taxes as well when you're buying big purchases. But what I do encourage people to do is do the work first. Don't have an idea and run out and get a 501c3. I would say follow the steps that Jazz gave. So register yourself in your state and then, be an official nonprofit and then start doing the work. And that way you can see how it feels. Because for some people, the idea is great in their head and it's a good cause, but they may not be the person called to do it. Or the idea is great and they may be the person, but they don't have the time. Or, whatever combination of those. So do the work first and then see how that feels. And if it feels great and it's going and there's a need in the community and you're getting people donating to you, then do your 1023. So for the 1023 EZ, I believe it's as long as you make less than a certain amount that you can do it. I can't remember how much it is, but I think it's like $50,000. So if you're not bringing in 50K, you could do the 1023 EZ. So that's most nonprofits starting up. And then the main difference is it costs a lot less money. I believe it's only $275 compared to $1,000, I believe, for the main one for the 1023. So if you're a smaller nonprofit just starting off, do the easy. You technically don't need a lawyer to do that one. We did ours ourselves, but for the categories, it gets a little confusing. But now we got all these other web resources, so you could probably look up, which category you fit into the best. But that'll be my recommendations. Do the work first. Once the work is moving and you see that you're getting donations and traction, then do your 1023 EZ if you're making less than 50,000. And also you can do a retroactive 1023. So that means people that gave to you before you got your 501c3, you can still go back and get them their tax exemptions after you get it. I believe that's like up to like 30 months. So that's like pretty much 3 years almost.
Let's get into this nutrition now. Let's take it way back. Like, what made both of you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a dietitian. I'm going to get a degree, not just a degree. I'm going to pursue a master's as a dietitian. I'm going to get a master's in clinical nutrition." What was the impetus of that for both of you guys?
Well, for me, it started off when I did not know about a dietitian. I didn't know about any of this. When I went off to college, I was majoring in exercise science. I took a nutrition course. And then from there, I really liked it because we eat. Everybody eats. Every single day, we all are going to eat. If we don't do anything else the same, we can all agree that everybody's going to eat. So it was just fascinating to me how our body breaks down food, turns it into nutrients, how that's used. And, for me being in college at the time, I was also like really fascinated when they taught us about alcohol and how it slows up everything and does all these things in our body. I was like, I'm never drinking again. I did drink again. But what I'm saying is I was so fascinated by it, by learning about nutrition and then also pairing that with my family history. So having a family medical history of diabetes and high blood pressure, it just like the light bulb went off. I'm like, I can do something about it. And that's something I can do is learn about nutrition so I can better help my people. Because a lot of people are not teaching us about nutrition and not in a way that resonates with us. So I was like, I could be the person to save people that were like my family members by learning this information. And then the master's, I was working for the Department of Health and they pay for it. So I definitely took advantage of that. And I got my master's degree while I was working there.
Yeah. So for me, actually my mom started to have medical conditions. I actually went to school for veterinarian medicine. So I actually was trying to be a veterinarian, someone that takes care of animals. And I wanted to be like, one of the top Black veterinarians in the US. So nutrition was never on the path for me. But like I said, my mom started to get sick and her doctor was actually at a loss for words of trying to figure out like, why isn't she tolerating certain foods? And we found out that she later had some GI issues that she had to navigate around her eating patterns, and he actually referred her to a dietitian. So that happened, and I started looking into it myself and tried to figure out if the university I went to at University of Tennessee, if they actually had a dietetics program. And within that same period, I was actually like a model, in a sense of like a model where you actually go to like a real agency and you get booked with like different brands and different magazines. And so for myself, I had my own personal relationship with food that wasn't as healthy because of the fact, like in that industry, you have to fit into a certain box and only look a certain way. And so I think it's personal for myself. And I wanted to learn more, but it was also very personal to my family because I began to connect the dots and say, hey, my granddad died from a stroke. Why is that happening? My dad is diagnosed with diabetes. Why is this happening? My grandmother died from complications of diabetes. Why is this happening? And it always came back to lifestyle changes, either that, were privileged to us or not privileged to us because we didn't have access or genetics or whatever it is that was the barriers that were impacting our community at the time. As far as I'll add on here, I am a certified diabetes educator. So I do have a specialty in diabetes education. And for me, that holds so heavy to my heart because most of my family members have diabetes. And so I always wanted to figure out ways that my family could adapt and prevent diabetes. And if they had diabetes, kind of rewrite the narrative of how diabetes looks and feels and what it can actually equal to as far as outcomes. And so with my master's degree, I think for me, it was more of like, how can I learn more and more and actually feel like I can apply more of the in-depth information to help my community as well. And unlike Ashley, though, I did not get my master's paid for, but I had to pay for it through working at the health department. So again, it's just one of those stories where you have to work hard and get it done. And that's my exact story.
Wow, great information. So, hey, it's time to get into it now. So, let's talk about, and I feel like in the African American community, especially with brothers, sisters too, but I'm just saying I'm more when I talk to my brothers, it's like, man, we're cashing these good checks, we're working these long hours, but what happens is I'm like, hey, it's 1 o'clock. Let's go to lunch. Nah, man, I'm locked into my project. I'm gonna go to lunch when I'm done. And then you end up just eating breakfast. You mess around, you eating lunch 4, 5 p.m. And then you're letting your career or you're chasing the bag more than you're, getting nutrition. So what are your thoughts on brothers and sisters that are working so hard where we're not taking time out to eat lunch? Is that healthy? Is that not? Is it if I can eat my lunch at 4:30, but my project done, I'm kind of relaxed versus, I'm gonna go to lunch at 1, but while I'm at lunch, I'm thinking about what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not really even enjoying my food. Let's take it there first.
Yeah, I will definitely say like the hustle mentality has definitely been one of those, I guess, quotes that have unfortunately gotten a lot of our brothers in the grave. I'm just gonna say it because you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people and even your business. Skipping meals, I will tell you the many of people that I have heard that say they skip meals and to the point where their body adjusts where it doesn't even let them know that they're hungry, even though internally they are, is very sad because our bodies need nutrients. I always tell people, like, if you want to perform the best at your job, just like if an athlete wants to perform the best at their craft in the sport that they're in, they need nutrients and they need certain essentials to get them to that point. And your food is the same way. Food is that pillar of health that gives you energy. So if you want the best company, if you want the best job, if you want to have energy to, have fun and hang out with your family, you need nutrients to be able to do that, but not only in the moment, but for longevity. And so I think you really have to redefine your goals aside from work, because sometimes life is about more than that than just work. And the more you take care of yourself, you'll start to see that. And then that starts to rub off on other brothers and sisters that are in our community. Other things that I'll say too is like, don't skip meals. And some of us try to define it by like, I'm fasting when it's not necessarily fasting because it's just kind of random, right? And fasting is very, very detailed. It's very precise in certain things. There are certain foods that some people may or may not eat, and to really fast in a way that is, I guess, the most beneficial. That means that you have to fit all the nutrients that you typically need in a day in a small amount of hours. So the type of food that you eat have to be the highest on the scale when it comes to your nutritional benefit and your health.
The only thing I would add is I was at a panel one time, and one of the presenters, her name's Dr. Delvina, and her focus is brain love and brain health as a mental health therapist. And she started off her segment by saying, "Can you do your job from a hospital bed?" And that was like, that hit me because, a lot of times we're moving and moving and moving. We have to get this done. But if you do something to get yourself really sick, and a lot of Black men, more than ever before, we've been seeing, I'm sure you all have been impacted personally with Black men having heart attacks left and right. And it's insane. So it's like you have to remind yourself that if you don't take care of yourself now, you can end up, sick, whether it's just a common cold or flu, or you can end up in a hospital bed. And if that was to happen to you, you won't be working anyway. So take that lunch, take that break, take that time for yourself. And then, like, honestly, my heart goes out for Black men because we are always glorifying men for being providers and protectors and all these things for everybody else. But no one is providing and protecting for y'all, for the basic needs that you have. So for me, it's like one of those things that because it's glorified so much, it's like a badge of honor to work hard and to be strong and to not be weak. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to take care of you and hopefully have a community or tribe around you that's constantly checking on you and making sure that you ate and making sure that everything is good with you too.
And actually, Ashley, I kind of have a question for you. I see you have a minor in religion. So
Yes.
when we talk about like eating habits, sometimes religion can play a part of that, access to food, family, culture. So what can we do in our community where, we have certain eating habits, but we understand some of it is not nutritious? What can we do though to get educated to where it's like, because my thing is, I'm not trying to go to Whole Foods and spend my whole check. Because there's a coworker, he actually spends a lot of money on eating super nutritious. He's in the grocery store 2, 3 hours reading all the labels. I'm not doing all that. You know what I mean? But how does the eating habits like relate to, the topics that I discussed? And how did that like did that have anything to do with you getting the minor in religion? Because I think that's pretty interesting.
Thank you. Yes, I got the minor in religion just because I took one class. It was like food and religion. And I was like, we don't talk enough about how much religion impacts our food choices. Because, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, then they eat primarily a vegetarian diet. If you are Jewish, there's certain foods that you can't have together. Like, as an example, someone that's Jewish, they don't mix they don't mix like a chicken egg with like the actual chicken together. It's like a mom can't eat her babies. It's a whole thing behind it. But so every religion has their thing. So for me as a dietitian, I wanted to be well equipped. So that way, when I'm working with people from different cultures, even if I'm not like the expert in it, at least I have some working knowledge. And then to go to what you asked about, how can we balance out eating healthy when it comes to our cultural foods and our religious foods? The basics is make half of every plate fruits or vegetables. And that's the USDA My Plate guidelines. So half of every plate fruits or vegetables. So now what you're going to do is plug in your cultural and religious foods. If you like collard greens, you can put collard greens on half your plate. When you think about grains, if you want rice, whether it's white rice, brown rice, whatever rice, that'll be 1/4 of the plate. And then the other quarter is going to be protein. So that could be black eyed peas, or that could be chicken. It could be steak, whatever is serving you choose. But when it comes to chicken, steak, and those sources of protein, you only want it to be a palm on your plate. And if you have big palms, then use somebody else's palm. I'm just kidding. But no, that's a good way because now you could take all the foods you like and enjoy, whether it is, like I mentioned, collard greens, whether it's sweet potatoes, whether it is any food that you like, and find a way to balance it on your plate. So again, half the plate fruits and veggies. The other half is divided between grains and protein. And now all you have to do is plug the foods that you typically like eating into that plate. And no, you don't have to shop at Whole Foods. As you mentioned earlier, there's levels to this. I'll just put it like that. Some people just stick to that plate method, and that's going to be enough to get you going. Other people, when you get more advanced, then you can start reading labels and knowing about different ingredients. But I don't want people that are just starting off. If you don't eat veggies at all right now, don't even look at those labels because that's just going to make you feel defeated. Because once you start reading labels, now you feel like everything is bad for you. So it can get more complicated. But I say from the beginning, if you're just trying to get healthy, focus on the plate. And then as you learn more, you can start looking at the label, looking at the sodium content of different foods, looking at how much carbohydrates and fat and protein it has as well. And also if there's any additives too. So it is okay to check that, but you can do that at your local grocery store. You don't have to shop at a particular grocery store just to be healthy.
I like how Ashley like really gave the plate as a good visual, right? And I think it's something that we also need to learn, and this is just from our community that we're taught is that we have to clean the whole plate. You know, it's that clean plate syndrome, right? Where everything, every little bit of gravy, every little bit of beans, it got to be eaten, even if we're past the point of full. So I do encourage a lot of our community, exactly, a lot of our community to really sit down and focus on their plate. And when I say focus, what I mean is, you know, try not to be distracted, whether it's eating in front of a TV. Nowadays, people are eating it on their phones, right? And really focus on, you know, am I hungry? Number one, if your body still gives you that signal. And then number two, where am I at a place where I'm satisfied? Because oftentimes that's where we should stop when we're satisfied. And there is a difference between satisfied and full. Because if you're satisfied, you're like, it's a different feeling. You know, you can get full off of just a plate full of broccoli, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be satisfied. So really search for that satisfaction of when you're eating the foods on your plate. And the other thing I would recommend, and it really goes back to what we previously talked about with skipping meals. If you can't remember the last time you ate, you probably need to eat. For most people, going between like maybe roughly around eating about every 4 to 5 hours. If you're eating a larger meal, for some people, they prefer to eat smaller meals where they have a snack in between, and that is completely fine too. I love how Ashley mentioned like the hand or the palm as far as protein. And of course, it will vary depend on, you know, your height, your current weight, all those different things. But I definitely think that's a great starting point because if I'm honest, we eat too much animal protein where we think that half the plate should be animal protein like chicken or fish or steak or whatever that may be, and the other half is grains. And then we have a little garnish of vegetable. And so we're kind of remixing that plate in a sense to show you how you can truly have a well-balanced, you know, diet.
Gotcha. Okay, I have like 50,000 more questions, but I'm gonna let my brothers get theirs, and I don't want to be like little Michael hogging the mic. So, all right, fellas, the stage is open. Say your name, the city, you coming from. It's Black Men Sundays. Let's go.
All right, if there ain't nobody up, I'll go. My name's Kalali Dobe from Prince Frederick, Maryland. First of all, thanks for taking your time out to share this information with us. Very, very good information. Really appreciate it. I guess the first question I'd like to ask is, could either one of you or both of you talk to us about the existence of food deserts and what we can come to overcome if we live in like a food desert?
Oh, definitely. So, a food desert, for those not familiar, is an area that does not have access to fresh and affordable fruits, vegetables, and balanced nutrient-dense foods. And now they started to call those food apartheids as well. So you may hear the terms interchangeably. And the reason why is because deserts occur naturally. You know, geographically, deserts occur. But apartheid, that's something that's happening intentionally. And we know that when it comes to those food insecure areas, it is very intentional. And it's predominantly Black and Brown communities. It's lower income communities that do not have full service grocery stores. So with those areas, it's very hard to get access to healthy food. And with that being said, you're 2.5 times more likely to have high blood pressure, to have diabetes and other medical conditions just from living in that community.
Hmm.
So there is a quote by Harvard School of Public Health, and it says your zip code is a better indicator of health than your genetic code. So think about that. So what you just asked about food deserts, it is a huge problem because when you live in these communities, you're surrounded by all the fast food places and liquor stores and everything else, but it's just hard for you to get a fresh banana. So what we encourage people to do that live in these communities is to try to buy frozen foods when possible and canned, because we know that canned foods are going to have more sodium, but it's better that you have some canned green beans compared to having nothing at all. And when you do buy canned foods, just rinse them and it's going to decrease the sodium by 40%. 40%. So that will be a great way to buy more canned and frozen. That way you have more access. And also to advocate when it's time to advocate locally for grocery stores, for community gardens, for anything like that. Please let your voice be heard because that's a great way to have more produce coming in. So I know that's more long term with the community gardens and with the grocery stores, but short term, I would say when you do go grocery shopping, plan out your meals, buy enough fruits and vegetables, and then buy frozen and canned vegetables as well to help it last you a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you so much. And on the thing about canned vegetables, because I don't eat a lot of canned vegetables, but I eat a lot of canned fruit. So like you're saying if you just wash that out, so you're saying if you take it out the can and just like wash it out with like water, it'll like decrease the sodium.
Correct. Because the vegetables have sodium in them to keep it preserved over time.
Right.
So it's just sitting in that solution pretty much. So once you rinse it, it's going to decrease that sodium that it's sitting in. And then for fruits, the same. I would buy them ones that are not in a heavy syrup, that are either in water or the 100% fruit juice. And if it's in 100% fruit juice, you can just, drink the juice. But if it's in water, you can just rinse it, and that will decrease the amount of sugar as well.
Okay, cool. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's gonna help me right now directly.
One of the things that I thought about as Ashley was talking was how she said like buy to the frozen and canned fruits and vegetables, right? So think of other ways too as you're planning. Like how can you repurpose those meals into like 2 or 3 other meals? That's another good way to like save as well. So for example, you mentioned like the canned fruit. So you may have fruit on the side as your breakfast, but maybe that next morning you can save the juice to add as a liquid to a smoothie, right? So those are like different ways that you can like use up most of those benefits and like stretch your meals a lot longer too as you're planning throughout the process. So that was the only thing that I was going to add.
Oh no, that's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's like I said, that's probably gonna be useful for me directly in my life probably tomorrow. So I definitely appreciate that. The other question I wanted to ask was, so you talked about, how you really pushing like healthy variations, I guess, on like say soul food or like Caribbean food. I guess what's the most common way to kind of like have a healthier variation of those foods if it is in fact true that they're less healthy or whatever, or can we talk about or tackle that?
So what I would recommend doing is first doing our research. So looking up foods that you like to eat, and then from there finding more about the nutritional benefits. If you want a cheat code, go to our website, go to our Instagram, and we post a lot about that. Everything is Eat Well Exchange. But once you find out the benefits, then I would categorize the foods. And I would say, okay, what's the source of protein? If you like black eyed peas, that's protein. If you like black beans, that's protein. And then I would say, what's a vegetable? And categorize those foods, categorize your fruits, categorize your grains and starches and your starchy veggies. And then from there, highlight the benefits and you can kind of see what those foods are already good for. When it comes to our cooking methods, anything that's fried, let's try to swap that out for sauteing. So that's just putting a little bit of oil in a pan, adding some onions, mushrooms, peppers, and then adding those foods instead of deep frying. So that will be a good substitution as well. And then also, I know a lot of us grew up with smoked meat, whether it was neck bones, different things like that. So I actually swapped that out for mushrooms with smoked paprika. Trust me now, it's really, really good. So smoked paprika is going to give you that smoky, savory taste. And once you put onions, peppers, and mushrooms with some smoked paprika and let it cook down like really, really well, where it's not burnt, but it's like cooked all the way through, it's going to give you that same smokiness. So then you add your collard greens to that, you add your cabbage to it, and it's going to give it that same smoky taste that meat gives it. So just finding small substitutions like that because we care about food tasting good. So as
Mhm.
long as you do things that are still going to give you that same benefit and that same taste, you're golden because it's not going to be like, oh, I'm eating the healthy stuff today. It's like, no, this is just my lifestyle.
Yes, and everything that Ashley said, and what that trick that she actually mentioned, I've tried before and it works. So I definitely trust her with that one. And another one I would add too is like the spices and herbs, because a lot of times we think of cultural foods and soul foods as like we have to add a salt, right? It has to be salt based. And so throughout, add the different spices and herbs throughout the recipe so that it retains its flavor. Another trick that I use too is like when you're sauteing things, like if you add your herbs and spices to the oil itself, if you use oil while sauteing, that can actually bring out some of the flavor from the spices and herbs too. And then to alleviate salt, because I've had this conversation with people before and asked them why they want salt. What is it? And it's really an enhancement of flavor. Salt is not technically giving flavor, it's just enhancing the flavors that the salt is put on. And so there's other things that you can use like lemon, vinegar. You know, we put vinegar on greens for a reason. And there's an internal benefit to that because when you use acids like that on our food, it actually helps your body to absorb the nutrients better. So not only does it make the food pop, you know, in your mouth, but it actually makes the nutrients pop in your digestive system. So there's an equal benefit to that. Black pepper is another one that does that too, where it helps with digestion.
All right, definitely appreciate that. Those are all the questions I had. I don't know. I'll turn it over if anybody has any other questions.
I do kind of try to get into healthier eating, but most of the time, what my problem is normally just, I guess, trying to stay on a strict diet and not skew off of that. Do you have any tips on how to better manage that, or how to basically make sure I can try to stay on track with that?
When it comes to a strict diet, I would say to ask yourself how realistic it is. So if you are, you know, setting yourself up for a diet where you're cooking 7 days a week, where you're eliminating certain food groups, I would ask yourself if that's the best fit for you. What we would recommend typically is to eat balanced meals throughout the day, to have lean sources of protein, to eat a good variety of vegetables, and also to cook more at home than you eat out as well. So when it comes to your diet, it really depends. But what we always encourage you to do is make sure you have balance, variety, and moderation. And that way you're actually enjoying the food that you eat and you have flexibility. So if every day you're eating salmon, broccoli, and brown rice, if that's not something you enjoy, then that wouldn't be something that we would recommend for you because yes, it's strict and it could be healthy, but it's not something that it will be, that you'll be able to sustain long term. I know some people are really disciplined so they can, but we do like to include different elements in food and also using different seasonings as well that can highlight the different food items. So let's say if you did want to eat chicken most days or salmon most days, using different herbs and spices to bring out different elements. And that also helps with like some of those anti-inflammatory components. And anything that's anti-inflammatory is going to bring down inflammation in our body, which is connected to heart disease and many other medical conditions. So I would say when it comes to a strict diet, it depends on how strict it is. And also finding ways that it can really fit into your lifestyle the best while still providing you good benefits.
Okay, yeah, I think you mentioned seasonings, and I think that is something that I'm trying to get better at because I know that basically if I can kind of mix the right seasonings in, I think that'll help me stay on my regimen. It helped me pretty much stay on track. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome. And it keeps it fun because we want you to enjoy food. So like tap into the lemon pepper, do some jerk seasoning, do some type of barbecue rubs, like really switch it up. Mm-hmm. Of course, get everything that's lower in sodium, so mainly fresh herbs that are available, but have fun and get those different taste palettes, whether it's umami, whether it's sweet, salty, tap into all those different flavor profiles. And that way it's going to make you really enjoy and look forward to your food a little bit more.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Gary, I would add too, as much as the spices and seasonings and stuff can like interchanging that, think about different methods you can cook certain foods. Because like, for example, like Brussels sprouts, right? Brussels sprouts, if you boil them, they're going to have a different taste and texture versus if you were to roast Brussels sprouts. And sometimes we don't eat just like based on like spices or flavors. Sometimes we eat based on textures and like what we crave as far as a texture before. Have you ever said to yourself, like, I want something crunchy and or salty, you know? You can kind of figure out ways to cook your vegetables or cook other foods to give it a crunchiness and add other spices and herbs or lemon or whatever to give a little bit of the saltiness without adding salt. So I would even not only eat just because of the flavor, but texture, what we're craving, just so many different layers to, you know, our taste palette.
That's true. That makes sense. Makes sense too. Thank you.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Ray, you got something? Because I got a couple.
Yeah, thanks again, you guys, for coming on. So this is Ray Simmons calling out of Rockledge, Florida. I appreciate you ladies for coming on. So my question is regarding the sustainability of diets, you were just speaking of, and I wanted to know your guys' thoughts on the Mediterranean diet and pros and cons that you may be aware of. It's something I talked to my doctor about, and he recommended. So I just wanted to, get some other ideas from and advice from you guys.
Yeah, so the Mediterranean diet, it does have a lot of focus on like your plant-based foods, such as like fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans, legumes, a little bit on dairy when it comes to like yogurt and certain types of milk. And it also focuses on too like different types of animal proteins, such as like mainly around like seafood or fatty fish that have like the omega-3s in them, minimizing chicken, minimizing any of your red meat, any of your other types of animal protein. So just in general, like that's like I guess a compass of like what the Mediterranean diet is. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's lots of research to show that the Mediterranean diet can, or like your diabetes, cancer, all those things. Mediterranean, for those who don't know, came from them doing research on different areas of the world that are considered the Mediterranean and looking at the foods that they ate. And there's tons of research to show that those foods have a positive impact in people's health in that population or in that area. I will say though, based on like our, research and, how we teach, the Mediterranean diet oftentimes neglects to mention African countries. And those African countries have a lot of cultural foods that we are actually exposed to, so to a certain extent, that can also fit in the Mediterranean diet. And so that's one of our missions, Ray, is to really encourage people like the Mediterranean diet is great, but oftentimes when you look it up, you're not going to find our cultural foods in it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit in it. And so when I mentioned like the Mediterranean diet is full of fruits and vegetables, there are fruits and vegetables in that Mediterranean diet too. I'll tell you a really quick story too. My stepdad actually was told that he had pre-diabetes, and the doctor told him to eat the Mediterranean diet. And so he looked it up, and the only thing that he focused on was eat fish, to the point where he ate so much fish that he had to cut it down because of his mercury levels. Okay. So I want to encourage you, as you start to eat the Mediterranean diet, do not forget about the other parts of the different food groups. It's not just about omega-3s and fish. There's other things on that plate that should be there, exactly how Ashley and I explained it, which fit into that Mediterranean eating style. But great question.
I was not aware that African foods or whatnot, they were not taken into effect, other food lifestyles, I guess, over the rest of the world. So my second question, real quick, was involving fasting, as you guys were talking about earlier. So is it something that you guys recommend? And if so, how often or how much is too much? Some people say 24 hours. I just had a buddy that just completed a 36-hour fast, and he was like, man, by the 25th hour, he's like, I thought I was dying already. I had already accepted death. And so, how to do it the healthy way, how to do it a correct way. And what do you recommend in regards to prepping your diet before doing a fast or yeah, like a long fast like that?
Well, I would say it depends on the reason too. Because if you're fasting for religious reasons, because of course, it's going to help with like clarity and discipline and all of those things, and go for it because that is your own personal spiritual connection. But when it comes to dietary benefits, I say you can fast, but with caution. The reason why I say that is because fasting could be beneficial. It could be good for some people because it makes you have more control of your eating pattern because you're not just eating all throughout the day. Like if you're a snacker, somebody that's eating while you drive, eating from the morning, eating all day long, sometimes fasting can stop you from eating all day and kind of give you a more disciplined style where you're just eating from, let's say, noon until 6 o'clock. If someone does have diabetes, usually fasting is not recommended because your blood sugar should be at a steady level. And when you go long hours without eating, it's going to make your blood sugar drop. And then once you eat again, it's going to make your blood sugar rise. Another thing to consider is when you're fasting and you start eating again, when you break your fast, what are you putting into your body? So if you're eating a bag of chips or a cookie, or if you just eat a piece of steak, will that be enough nutrients to last you the entire day? And then we have to think back. The food we're eating is our source of energy. It's our source of nutrients. So if you have a busy day and you're not really eating that much, your brain is not going to get the correct fuel that it needs to help you make better decisions, to help you be more productive. So I'm not against fasting, but if someone's fasting primarily just to lose weight, I wouldn't recommend. If it's for religious or spiritual, purposes, I would say fast, but within reason, and then try to have a good healthy meal to break your fast. It could be something like, avocados, which will be a good healthy fat with a source of protein. Oh, you don't like avocado? Okay, it could be avocado with a good source of protein. It could be oatmeal. It could be something that's kind of hearty to break your fast, along with some berries or something that's more complete. You don't want to go fasting all day, and then when you do eat, you're giving yourself a lot of sugar or not a good balanced meal.
Oh, perfect answer. Okay, yeah, that helps out a lot because, well, I guess from one thing that I read on it, on fasting is during those periods of fasting, you're from a health perspective, like cells are repairing themselves, your body is, doing all these amazing things, almost. I don't, guys, cleaning your entire system out. So I can see how that can also roll over into like a religious aspect of doing it. But I was thinking more in the terms of, just like, science and health, biology wise. But great answers from both of you, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, ladies, let me ask y'all. Y'all enjoying yourself on Black Men Sundays?
Yes. We love the conversation and all of the questions. And what I always feel is that whatever you are asking us, there's probably about a couple hundred other people listening that have that same question or don't even know that this is something they've been thinking about. So we definitely appreciate all the questions and all of the conversation that we've been having so far.
All right, cool. Well, hey, here's what I want to talk about because when we, in the conversation, we talked about salt. And I hear a lot of people say, well, you know what? I don't use salt, I use Lowry's. Is that a good substitute or no?
Laurie still has a lot of salt. It's seasoned salt.
Larry's is still salt, but they do have an option. They do have another option though. Lowry's do have a lower sodium option, and you can always compare this too. Because I was shocked too when the chef showed me like last month. I was like, what? When they bring a lower sodium option of it, they do have one. But your recommendation for sodium is it's usually no more than 2,300 milligrams per. If you have high blood pressure, which over 50% of African American men have some form of heart disease related to blood pressure, then the recommendation is actually 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams per day. Now, if you're a visual person, what that looks like is less than a teaspoon of salt. So less than a teaspoon of salt you need per day, especially when you're cooking. But the things that people don't think about is how much salt is in our food. And I know we talked about this briefly, but when you're reading the label, it's important to look at those different milligrams when it comes to sodium. It'll say sodium in bold. And one thing that I go by is to compare your sodium to your calories. And if your sodium is like 3 or 4 times higher than your calories, it's probably a higher sodium option. And you either want to eat less of it or just not eat it at all.
You got a comment, Ashley? Because I was about to say, what about Gatorade though? Because my wife brought some low sodium. I mean, not low sodium. I wish. I mean, she brought some low sugar, no sugar Gatorade. But then when I compare it to the full sugar Gatorade, I'm like, well, the sodium level is still like ridiculous. So, what about Gatorade? Because I see people, it's the New Year's, people in the gym, knowing they ain't gonna be in the gym. Once it's time to get those February 14th chocolates, they ain't gonna be in the gym no more. They're gonna be chilling, doing what they did last year. But, I see people drinking a ton of Gatorade. So how, because when people think about Gatorade, hey, I'm working out, I need to replenish. But how healthy is Gatorade if you're drinking that on a daily basis? Because like I said, there's a ton of sodium in that.
Right. So when it comes to Gatorade, it does have a lot of sodium, and that's because Gatorade was designed for athletes that are running outside, burning all these calories, sweating, and losing electrolytes. So if you're running like a marathon, if you're playing basketball, if you're doing something very intensive and you're sweating, let's say any type of intense activity for over an hour or two, then you need something that's going to replace electrolytes. So that could be Gatorade. A more natural option is coconut water, which which coconut water is a natural way to kind of replace those electrolytes. Some athletes, they do chocolate milk as well, because that's going to help as well when it comes to balancing out those electrolytes. But we know when it comes to milk, a lot of people that are Black or African descent, we don't tolerate milk as well. So if you can handle milk, that's an option too. When it comes to Gatorade, for most people that are just in the gym, if you're in the gym on a treadmill for, let's say, 20, 30 minutes, and then you do some weights, you don't need Gatorade. You could just drink water. But if you're outside playing basketball and sweating like profusely, like this morning I did hot yoga and I sweat a lot. So when you do something like that where you're losing a lot of fluids and electrolytes, then you can replace it. But I wouldn't recommend to just always grab a Gatorade. And if you do, maybe just give yourself a smaller portion, like 8 ounces, because that Gatorade container is pretty big. And then another thing I do want to touch on is serving size. A lot of people look at a label and they think that's how much is inside of the entire product, but make sure you read how many servings are per bottle. So if it says it's 2 servings per bottle, you got to multiply everything by 2. If it says 4, you got to multiply everything by 4. And a lot of people don't know that, because they look at something and say, oh, it's just 120 calories. And it's like, yeah, for 7 chips. So you got to multiply by how much you're actually eating. And that will help. And the same when it comes to like the Lawry's. The serving size is a 1/4 teaspoon. And I don't know anybody on this planet that's using a 1/4 teaspoon of seasoned salt. No. So with that being said, you think that it's lower sodium, but when you actually calculate how much teaspoons you're putting, it's going to be much more. And that's one of those things. No one's teaching us that. We don't even learn nutrition in school anymore. So we know that the information that we have isn't like common knowledge. So it's really up to us and everyone listening to kind of spread this information with their circles as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, great information, ladies. Well, thanks for coming on Black Men Sundays. We enjoyed your intelligence. We enjoyed that melanin magic. We enjoyed your education. I hate to say it, but I kind of could go another hour easy, but we're not doing that. Got football on. Y'all probably want to eat y'all food or whatever. So, many blessings. Happy New Year. And thanks for coming on Black Men Sundays, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed the conversation and all of the questions. Thank you so much.
It's a Black Man Sunday.